All right, let's get this going. Well, myself because I have it up. Let me just let people know. I'm sure everyone's just on pins and needles waiting for this to start, making sure this is it's good. Hope my internet doesn't seem to be perfect, but that's just normal stuff right there. Okay, I'm not going to waste too much time getting into things. Let me just post one thing that we're live, and then I'll do a normal-ish intro. I didn't make an intro yet because I've also have not done that. Okay. Get out of that. Internet's back to being good. All right. Well, welcome back to the DJenerate Gambling Show with DJ Mitchell. Just me tonight. Matt, it was busy. I can't remember what he was doing, but I'm going to just go over Underdog drafting for the NHL playoffs. I really actually feel like we've only had 2 years of this. This is the third year of the Zamboni draft. I really feel like we actually got a good look at two very different outcomes of what can happen in the playoffs. If anyone could just comment letting me know that the audio sounds good, or if it doesn't, I'm assuming it's probably fine. But yeah, I do think we have two very unique looks at what happened. One contest much smaller than the other. They kind of spread the wealth a little bit more this year. I would have liked a bigger payout up top, but that is what it is. I love drafting on Underdog. I mean, it's no secret. I know it's a best ball backwards hat bro virgin gang. I'm in it. I get it. I understand it. I love it just because, again, it's fun. Even if you're drafting something like football, which I don't enjoy as much as hockey, it's still just a great way to enjoy whatever you're watching, right? A daily for hockey, I really like, but I've just been out of a bit more. I love the playoffs the most, though. The NHL playoffs is the best time of the year, and I really think it's the best opportunity for Underdog and anyone to introduce people to the sport or give them a new opportunity because more people just watch at the playoffs. It really is a unique experience, and I know I'm super biased, but yeah, I think it's the best. So, Underdog Fantasy. I don't know if Drafters is doing a contest. I meant to check that before we started. You know what? I can do it while we started. Who cares, right? We're already here. I have money in Drafters, and I planned on maybe taking. I don't see anything on Drafters. They have something here actually. What is this? They have a slot, but it doesn't load. So maybe Drafters is coming out with a contest as well. I'm not going to focus on that obviously today. Underdog is great. Sign up, promo code, use, what is it? What do we got? Puckluck. Yeah, code Puckluck. Match deposit up to $100. I'm happy that Pat Mayo came over as well. You know, used to kind of do some stuff with the Pat Mayo experience, the PME. No, it was actually, I was on Mayo Media Network, and hopefully I can get some of that fan base that loves golf and is Canadian to jump into the hockey streets. So I'm just going to get going, though. I don't want to waste too much time. 3 minutes in, people have joined if they wanted to join. I'm going to start going team by team, breaking down the top 5 teams for each of the last 2 years. And I'm going to start with the team that finished 5th in 2022. And you'll see only $500 won for that 5th place. It wasn't a very big contest, the original Zamboni. And it's kind of a weird team. So what was really unique about this Stanley Cup Finals, especially, was that Colorado goaltender got hurt and Darcy Kuemper. And I don't believe anybody, I'm going to double check when we go through. I don't believe a single team had the Stanley Cup winning goalie. Oh, I moved on. Yeah, no, none of the top 5. And I'm almost positive it was a 0% because almost no one drafted that backup. And I do think that we could see a little bit of it this year. And we'll go a little bit team by team. We're not going to get crazy in depth because we don't even have the full playoff picture yet. I mean, that's really not all that important at this point. Like, there's a different strategy now than there'll be later. So I'll definitely do a follow-up. But this team right here that finished 5th, I do think, and I don't know this person at all, but if you're out there, Adam, good job. I think they did a really good job of capitalizing on the structure of building a team pretty well here. As far as, 2 centers can score, or 3 centers could actually score because it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 2 flex. And the only thing that they didn't nail was having enough players in the finals to really get over that edge. They just kind of happened to fall upon the best players in the finals other than Cale Makar. But they had the goalie, 1D. They didn't even fill a full roster, as you see. They have one center, one wing, one util. And again, Colorado got a little bit hurt by not having a goalie that advanced throughout. So teams that drafted Kemper, which was going in like the first round or second round, if I recall correctly, got pretty badly hurt by that. So again, I'm not going to go too in depth here, but I do like the 4-4-2-2 is totally fine and actually really helped them a lot because Igor was instrumental in getting the Rangers to that point, to that, I think it was game 6 or 7. I think it was 6 with it when they finally closed it out, but I am not going to double check. And you kind of needed him to advance, as you're going to see for most of these teams. Now, team 2, unbelievable stuff with Mike Smith down there. But again, a 4-3-3-2, I think that's fine. They did not get any top defensemen at all. They absolutely loaded up with Leon and McKinnon and Kucherov, who, I mean, again, we're going back a couple of years. Tampa was a pretty decent favorite. So they loaded up top. So I don't mind spreading the wealth and getting 3D. It's not my preferred method in reality, but I think it's fine. I definitely could justify it here. And again, they kind of lucked into a perfect storm. Now, Braden Point only getting 6 really didn't help them, but it did get them over the edge as they had, a 2-2-1-1. That's a full roster, even though that 6 points isn't much. I do think it nudged them over the finish line, especially with the McKinnon team and only Devin Taves left. But I mean, in reality, Devin Taves scored enough there that he was fine. Bowen Byram would have been the skeleton key, and I don't think he was drafted. He was coming in pretty young and raw. But again, part of this is to show, number one, I believe most of these teams had a goalie. I think all of them had to have had a goalie. But getting to the finals, you really had to have Vasilevsky to have any chance in this one. And that's probably a bit unique. And again, we're going to get into next year. This team, again, I think this is another good example of if you've already failed rerouting and getting successful with that. I kind of think they got a little bit lucky here because they didn't quite go far enough, in my opinion. But they did center around 2-3 teams pretty nicely here, where it was Colorado, Rangers, Tampa was the priority. And then they, at the end of drafts, took on a couple guys from Washington, Pittsburgh, etc. I would have done less of that. Like Ovi made sense in this window because he was such a high ceiling player for a team that I believe was in the wild card slot. But again, I don't think I think they actually, like, maybe it's just the Letang ad here that's like, you've gone a step too far. And again, here's a team that actually, I was right. They did not have a goalie in the finals and finished third. The reason being is because they had enough to score throughout the lineup. A 2-1-2 uses both of your flex, 1-1-1, and then 2 extra. They gave themselves that opportunity, which is, you have to have. No matter what you do in every draft, even if, in this scenario right here, they actually had 2 outs, because if the Rangers would have made it, they actually would have been better off. I am close, but I think, in my opinion, they didn't have a defenseman from the Rangers, and they did from Tampa, which the 62 from Hedman, you could argue, but again, versus Panarin, Kreider, hard to know for sure. Point being here is that I think that this team almost could, was perfect, and the goaltenders would absolutely crush them. I mean, I think they win if it's the Rangers, is my point here. But this build is how you give yourself that opportunity. They just keep kind of checking back here or there to see if anyone has any questions. Team number 2, Fish. I've seen him around. I mean, it's pretty similar, a little bit. But again, this is just getting a little more condensed. And obviously, you're probably already guessing if you're looking at this. I would not have added that third goalie. There's just absolutely no need to do that. And then this kind of a build, if you're, I mean, I get it. In like the only respect I get it in is if someone slips so far down the line that you get to a point of like, I guess it fits my stack, right? Like, so in this scenario here, there really isn't even good. I mean, they built an Eastern Conference final team, which again, a strategy I do want to discuss, because there's only one player on their entire roster outside of the goalie that is a Western Conference Finals potential player in McKinnon. And I don't think that's completely wrong. You still give yourself an opportunity to score a full roster in this scenario. It's a tougher needle to thread. And I think they, I'm hesitant to go even this far, because I would probably prefer at least one more Colorado piece in there somewhere to go with McKinnon, even if it is, then this year under Tushkin or Alekinen or, Devin Taves. I definitely would prefer that one more guy in the mix just to give yourself a little bit of an out. But I don't mind absolutely loading up on one side of the conference, because at the end of the day, one team's going to win that cup. And if that one team sweeps or wins in 5, the opposing team might not have that many optimal scores in it. So I don't mind this strategy in theory. I don't think this exact type of build would have won again or got second again in a much bigger contest. Like the size of the contest really helped this team that threaded the needle pretty successfully. Again, nailing Tampa, getting all of that top Tampa besides Victor Hedman was enough for them to at least with that McKinnon boost get over the edge, get over the hump and put themselves in that position. But again, that is threading the needle to a bit more of an extreme than I would have gone. And then finally, Sam Olsen, always around, definitely a GOAT and should be considered probably better than me in the hockey space. I think he's just really, really good and continues to dominate the daily street. So follow him. If he's in here, Sam, shout out to you. This is kind of, again, a bit more of an ideal team to me, just centering around less teams in general and giving himself so many paths to winning in this build. I mean, he didn't even use a score from Samuel Girard because he had so many players in that mix. So this is really what you're looking for, and this is how a winning team would look like going forward. I had a few teams in the finals, nothing that made top 5. I was decimated, honestly, by the Kemper injury. I had a ton of Colorado with Kemper, and I only drafted Kemper, though. And this first year, that was my strategy going in, was taking one at maximum 2 goalies, which was rare that I even did that. I was primarily focused on 1 goalie teams, assuming that if you, especially when you took a guy like Kemper or Shesterkin or Vasilevsky, and those 3 guys were kind of the 3 that I was like, not only 3, but 3 of the guys that in this window felt like they were, you maybe could be okay with a one and done. And it really cost me big time. And I definitely have opened my mind a bit more to how much are you giving up to get a goalie in the mix, especially when you consider how many times a goalie's performance only getting 4 games or 5 games comparatively to 6, you might just not advance against a guy that loses his goalies. Well, that guy still advanced. I mean, he's dead now. And you might think, well, I have my Sklansky bucks. I drafted a little bit smarter than him, but you're still dead. So you have to get there at the end of the day. And that's one thing I waver on in every draft is, do I take that? I'm at this point, I'm primarily going 2 goalies. There isn't as much in these windows as I recall in the original windows for goalies going much earlier. Last year, a bit different with Ullmark, but I don't know if there really is one team this year that's like, oh, that team's obviously winning the cup. And last year, that team was Boston, and they got taken out in the first round. So, yeah, any questions so far? I see nothing. I'm just going to keep going then so you don't see the screen in this weird window. I accidentally put in a 16 for 2023. I don't know why. This guy's a bozo, but I had to put his team in. I thought it was an okay team. He scored a full roster except for a goalie. And I do remember this team being like, I've picked this perfect Dallas, Vegas, Florida team. And honestly, the reason I put this in here is because it's a really good example of I'm not getting what I want. I'm abandoning ship. Okay, so this is really the reason I put this in there. As you can tell, because this is in order by where I drafted it, I went Leon and Ullmark to start, thinking, how can I build this Edmonton-Boston roster? Everyone in this lobby was taking Edmonton-Boston. I gave up immediately. I did not play that game, and I drafted a ton of Dallas to go with a goaltender, which obviously didn't get there, and a ton of Florida, now assuming, well, I know I just wasted Ullmark. I'm done. I'm not getting Boston. I might as well just go off the reservation. So it's a weird team, but I'm willing to do that. Like I think if you've already lost on your first 2 guys, I'm not saying to automatically go to the team against the goal you already took, but I don't think there's a problem. Just jump, get off that ship. The ship is so far gone. There's no sense of trying to bring it back to port. And last year, you could stack 3 teams like I did in the conference finals. I had a ton of Dallas over more of a good Vegas Florida build. I had a number of teams in the finals that really had no chance at all. This was one of my 2 that had any semblance of a chance. I think I had 6, 11, and like 13 or something. I had like 3 teams that were even close, and then one of them was just, again, you kind of, if you had Marchessault, you really did give yourself a chance. He was just so good in the finals. But again, the reason is you can jump ship pretty fast and still be rewarded with $3,000. Team number 2 here, another good example of jumping ship. You start with Matthews Marner, and I mean, he did end up taking Tavares, Jota here, but went to didn't go and take Matthew Knies, didn't go and continue to add pieces when it seems like you weren't getting that goalie. I don't really know how this draft went exactly. Obviously went Colorado decently early, probably, and just ended up kind of falling into Florida and some Vegas. I still think this is a good way of doing things where you've built a little bit of Toronto for upside. You missed out on most of those pieces. You've given yourself something there, and you've given yourself a lot on the other side. So taking a team like Florida, who you've already missed every single piece on Boston, I think makes sense to build a conference final team. And as you'll notice, the reason this was the most successful is because it was 4 teams. And at the end of the day, you got to the final with 2 of your 4 build, your 2 in the East, 2 in the West, and it just worked out really nicely. With even though Colorado got swept in the first round, you escaped, not swept. Oh my God, they lost in the first round. It really didn't even matter, and you rode a team without any defense for multiple rounds or a goalie because Florida was just really that good at the end of the day, and so was Vegas. But this just goes to show you that I think this is a good example of build around a core 4, which is something I'll talk about more. We'll keep going though. Again, another team started with McKinnon, did not take another Colorado Avalanche. I love that. Give up. Like every single person probably fought over scraps and is taking bozos on the third line. And you're out here getting pieces like Alex Pietrangelo, who more or less won you $6,200. It's just, you got to build for that kind of upside. There's chaos in the NHL playoffs. Go to any sportsbook right now and bet any team you think is going to win the cup, and it's still like 4-1, 5-1 on the best team that you could think of. And that doesn't even include teams that are actually first in the league, like Vancouver right now, right? I mean, they're still like 8, 9, 10-1. So embrace that chaos. I think that's what this team did here. They started with some Boston, abandoned ship, go to Vegas, go to Dallas, build that Western Conference final that carried you all the way to the cup. And even though this team didn't have a goalie, it didn't really matter because no one had Aiden Hill. That, Brossoit, Leonard was, I think he was pretty much done, but Brossoit was kind of the guy to start, and then Aiden Hill took over. But again, 2 years in a row where the goalie didn't really work out, but I don't think that's a lesson we have to take away. But again, we'll get to that. So yeah, I think this is, again, just a really good example. And again, you're going to see, and you've already seen it multiple times, teams that abandoned ship early on some of these top dogs really made out well. If it works out in your favor and you can get that chalk team, and again, 2 years ago, Colorado Tampa wasn't that crazy to find in the finals. I mean, that was decently predictable. Last year, I don't think many people had Florida, especially when they had Boston in the first round, nor did anyone have Vegas. I think in that same realm as your Colorados and your Edmontons and your Dallases. Now they're there. I get that, but it was a pretty wild finals, and which is why you kind of see a little bit less of an amazing amount of those players, but they were easy to get. So now let's move on. These 2 teams tied, actually, if you'll notice. So guy here. I'll move a little quicker. I'm probably taking way too long. Where are we at? No questions still? We're going really long. Yeah, again, abandoned ship, like the same team, same build, kind of in many respects, same players that scored. So it makes sense. But again, built a Vegas team, only went with Toronto on the other side, and it just didn't matter. Like, they didn't even have Florida in the finals. They got there on a Western Conference build, and they still were awarded with $6,200. Totally fine, right? They did not carry a single player on the Eastern Conference out of round 2. Doesn't matter. I mean, again, I'm not saying you have to draw that conclusion every time, and then you're much better off. I'm sure this guy would have liked Toronto to keep winning. He probably wins the whole tournament. But again, you can't predict to that specificity. I mean, think about building a parlay around every single bracket, picking every team even just to move on. And it's impossible. No one's ever really done it. Like, think about how difficult brackets are to predict. So just throw some stuff at the wall. Not go crazy. Don't start your draft and say, I'm taking I'm going to start with the Islanders and the Flyers. And you know what I mean? You have to get nuts, but like, be willing to adjust, especially as the playoff picture takes even larger form. Team number 2 here, another example. You'll hear it again. Started with Boston, even carried it on with a third guy. They said that's good enough. Built almost an entirely Western Conference, exactly correctly, Dallas, Vegas team. Didn't get a goalie. And then went to Florida because they realized they'd already lost. Now, I'm not sure when this team was drafted, of course. Maybe they didn't know for sure that Florida was going to be playing Boston, or maybe that was a plan of, well, I need to move Boston on. If Boston, Florida goes far, maybe I wasn't there obviously in Chip's head here, but it's not something I would strongly suggest, especially as the playoff picture takes form. And we have some matchups that are somewhat pretty likely to try to avoid. So again, not saying to take a team against another team in the first round. I think that's probably stupid. Like I said, you're trying to build for a conference final potential. But in this scenario here, they did end up getting pretty lucky on that because the team that knocked out Boston ends up getting them all the way to the finals where they ended up, rostering almost a full team here, a full team without a goalie. And then finally, the only team I believe that rostered a full lineup and goalie in the finals. Here it is, the guy that wins it all, 20K, clearly started with an idea around Toronto and Dallas, and then just went to Vegas and Florida. Every pieces are gone. You're just not getting what you want exactly. Ends up taking Bobrovsky. I'm guessing as like his last pick. He really wasn't going that often because I feel like people were pretty sewn up on goalies. I ended up actually a large reason I advanced at a good clip and even got this far. And I had a lot of teams. Most of my teams in the finals had Bobrovsky, other than of course a couple of my best. But that's beside the point. They had like no Vegas was the issue there. I mean, this is really why you get different. And again, another reason I'm thinking even more about those second goalies, especially in scenarios like this, where you only took a Toronto goalie, you've kind of fallen into well, what else can I possibly do here? I'm going to Florida. I think that scenario where, to Toronto and Florida, they really couldn't even have faced in the finals, Eastern Conference Finals by the time, it came together. But again, I think it's a really interesting way of doing things. I'm going to unshare my screen. There's still no questions. If anyone has any questions, but again, I think that this was a really good way of kind of getting our headspace right. And of course, right now we don't have an exact playoff picture, but we're going to keep in mind, what the standings look like, what teams could play who, what conference makes, what divisions are coming together a bit more, because we have a pretty good idea of where, whenever time I'm drafting, I'm pretty much just pulling up Score App Wildcard and keeping it next to me, just so I have it with me, just to really quickly check. You only get 30 seconds per pick. But again, no questions still. So either I'm doing the best job ever and everyone's just like, this is perfect, I love this, or I have confused people. I'm going to keep moving, I guess. I'm just going to start joining drafts. I'm just going to enter right now. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to look back and forth a little bit. It filled immediately. That's amazing. Oh, and then it disappeared. That's less amazing. Another thing I'm going to mention right now, I'm going to be every day possible. I'm going to start drafting at 9 p.m. and make some tweets about it and just let people know if they want to join. Hopefully we get a few lobbies right now. You know what? I'm just going to jump in another one. Why not, right? But I definitely wanted to give more opportunity for people to be able to draft together. And I know it can be frustrating to not have people to draft with all the time. You may be noticing my exposures. I'm actually not sure how updated they are. I feel like not at all. So let me, 1 second. I'm going to update these. This is the Brick Draft Caddy, which I hadn't grabbed my exposures yet because I've only drafted 5 teams, but whatever. So if you want this tool, brick75.com. Whatever. It might not be loading because there's just no way. I have 12% map use and 10%. None of those numbers make any sense. So yeah, teams again. As I start every draft, and I fed this, I think, exactly on when I was on with Pete last season. I really let the board fall as it will. I don't have, again, because I'm really quick to just abandon ship. So if I start a draft and I start with Austin Matthews, I start with Pastrnak, whatever it is, I'm going to start with that. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to see what happens. And if I immediately end up realizing that it's just not going to work because someone else is just going to try to hoover up, if it's one other person on Colorado, for example, maybe I'll try to play with them. But without so this draft right here, I'll just do the Rantanen and Makar and see what happens. If someone takes Georgiev from me, which you're watching this and you're in this draft, you guys will just know I don't really care. If you take Georgiev, I'm probably abandoning ship there. I'll take those 2 Colorado pieces. I know, they're very likely in the first round to play Winnipeg at this point or Dallas. So I'm just going to kind of avoid Winnipeg or Dallas. I can't see many scenarios where they drop any of those three teams drop into the wild card spot. So if they end up playing Winnipeg or Dallas in round one, I'm going to avoid them. And if they win, which I'm already predicting at this point, I'm saying they're winning, right? I mean, I understand that it's not a gimme, and it's certainly not. I mean, they're probably going to be, if they play Winnipeg, minus 150 to win that series, minus 180, maybe it's up to minus 190. Winnipeg has been good. And I'm just going to say, okay, so no more Winnipeg, no more Dallas, because if they beat them, they would likely play Dallas or one of the wild card teams. I can't predict that far. Right now, it would be Vegas. No, it would be Nashville that would join their grouping. Again, not going to go that far in advance. Things will move around. Oh, hi, GA. Still no questions. I'm just going to consider myself doing the absolute perfect job on this. Guy up right now, Nylander. So I think all right. I mean, yeah. So they went Rangers here. The one drafter. So I'm gonna get Georgiev back to me and potentially Val, but you never know. This guy's on auto, I believe, because he drafted. So there's only one person in my way. They have Bouchard. We'll see what happens. They have Hyman. Oh, they're not going to get Hyman. That's a tough break. But again, I'm easy to switch. I'm also easy to say this is my opportunity to load up on an Avalanche team that could be a bit unique. And I know I'm not getting McKinnon. He's obviously one of the highest scorers for sure, but you're never going to get an opportunity to get Makar, Ranton, and Georgiev and McKinnon, right? So what does a team where Colorado wins looks like? I think it ends up looking like this. And I understand that the odds of Colorado winning the cup are still pretty imperfect, but whatever. Right now, I don't even have to really focus on the Western Conference at this point. I basically am completely hitching my wagon to Colorado. This is a scenario where I could see myself saying I only take one goalie, or at the very least, not taking a goalie anytime too soon, because I very much have now hitched my wagon to Colorado. I don't think you need to go way over the reserve on taking Colorado guys at this point. I know I haven't even filled a full roster with Colorado that could potentially score, but I'm pretty dang close with a lot of the peak performers. So I'm not going to get crazy and say now I have to, just continue to hammer Colorado, because how many paths do I have to advancing at this point? So I really want to try to find a way to build a cromulent Eastern Conference final, which is going to take, again, loading this up. Let's look here. I mean, Rangers are already starting to go. Carolina is decently available, and they just added a couple pieces in Kuznetsov and Gensel, who are a little bit down the list. They still haven't moved up too far yet. To take a look at Carolina, Toronto, their main dogs are gone. Florida is still hanging around. Boston has a couple pieces, but Pastrnak is obviously the guy you want on that team, and there's not too many peak performers. They're really going to be goaltender driven. So the Eastern Conference is a little bit tricky. I might take a look at Tampa. This is it's build a winner from 2 years ago, but it's not the worst idea in the world to take a look at a team like Tampa. This guy, he's still, I think, auto drafting. Aho seems a little bit weird that he was. Oh no, I guess ADP. Okay. Well, I was gonna say this guy's kind of competing for a couple teams I'm interested in, but it is what it is. The other guy after me has built up a pretty good Edmonton, Boston scenario, so I could see him jumping down for a guy like McAvoy to lock him in. Auto drafters kind of help you plan ahead too. I kind of knew that's where Verhaeghe's going to go here. That's fine. No big deal. Take that, move on. So yeah, the tough part here is I could do, like I said, I could just start going Western Conference Finals right now, and I could grab Vegas and just say, oh my God, I just realized I loaded 2 drafts. Let me just make sure the other one didn't start. No, it did not. Thank God. But I think I'm just going to do a little Eastern Conference thing here and just grab, you know what? Let's just grab Carolina. We could take Svechnikov and we could take Gensel. I know they're both wingers. I know now I'm really going to be in a bind at center. You know what? Let's take Jack Eichel. I don't think, I'll just stay optimistic he stays out of this grouping and start building a bit of a Western Conference scenario here. I can't miss out on center this bad. I don't know where I'm going to go from here at this point at center. It's getting really thin really fast. And there's some guys down the board I can grab and feel okay about, but I'm just, again, it's so early. I mean, there's still 25 games I think left or something. No, like 22 games left for some of these teams. So much can move around. I mean, Vegas could, in reality, they're 2 points back on the Kings. I mean, they could easily jump the Kings at this, you never know. And I mean, I could still go to the Kings here. I mean, that's a team that's just not going, right? A team that I really didn't think about till now. And I think if I would have gone another direction here, the Kings, especially when you need centers, never mind, because now they only have Kopitar. I thought they still had Kempe. Well, they have, they have guys. I mean, I thought like you couldn't draft a Dubois or Kopitar, or I've drafted none of these guys, so these percentages are still from Best Puck. But again, the Kings are a team that are, let me pull that up one more time. I mean, ADP 70, and there's how many slots? 72. So as you can see, not going really. So anyways, back on track here. I've put myself in an interesting position to, like I said, I think put together. Sorry, just checking just got a notification. I was wondering who scored, and it was the Red Wings, and I think they lost to the Sabres. But yeah, Marner still on the board is interesting. I mean, this guy, he's going to get Matthews Marner. This guy's actually building a pretty nice auto draft team. Kind of weird, but is what it is. So yeah, I'm kind of falling into a team I really like. Rupe Hintz goes. I get Gensel to come back to me. That is really what I was hoping for. This never goes this easy. So I get a couple nice Carolina pieces. I mean, do I just take Lehkonen? I feel like that's almost going a bit too far. I'll take Brent Burns. I mean, geez, like I might as well. I missed Aho, but whatever. I get Burns, Makar. I get a 3-man Carolina, a 3-man and a goalie on Colorado. I mean, my center is obviously in a rough spot here, but I do have some outs. I mean, not the highest guy in the world on Casey Middlestead in this kind of format, a guy that has, only 352 points in this format without having a career year going over to Colorado. But again, one round, anyone can kind of do it. There's been many a scenario where a guy that kind of can be an unsung hero and has a hat trick. I mean, it's not like Casey Middlestead's immune to getting multi-point games. So, this is a guy to consider. I have a guy in Seth Jarvis here that can fit. And then I'm just going to kind of take a look at Vegas in general. And I'm pretty sure I've noticed Marchessault went. Yeah, Marchessault went, but let's type in Vegas. There's still Shea Theodore. Tomas Hertl could come back. Another center I could add. And then, wing is a little bit thin as far as, Stone and Marchessault are gone, but there's some pieces here for sure. And I know it can get uncomfortable to draft this way. And so just keep in mind how many picks you have left, right? I mean, I was pretty high on spreading the wealth a bit, but I'm kind of committing to one goalie, unless if, in the last round, maybe I'll take a look at Freddie or Kochetkov. I don't even know at this point, though. I'm very much hitched to Colorado. And I'm going to continue that a bit more. So yeah, this is an interesting build. Nachos is the guy here I'm kind of taking a second peek at. I definitely want to take 2 centers. So I have 4 picks left. I have 3 centers that I feel like are largely undrafted, and I'm fine with 3. I think defense is definitely done. I especially if I'm only taking one goalie, which I might go back on. Like I said, I'm actually really thinking about taking Korchekov with my last pick. I think he ends up getting the nod for them at this point, but it could be Freddie Anderson. It could be a mistake. Wing is very, very, very solid. So yeah, I mean, I'll take Middlestead just in case. I'm not that nervous here. Anyone's going to jump up and take him, but that's definitely going to be a guy just to further build out Colorado. Maybe he gets bumped up to the top power play instead of Drouin as he gets more acclimated and can end up being a really, he'll jump up the boards pretty high at that point. Oh, I think my other draft might be starting. Nope, it is not. Or no, it's not. I really just going to take Seth Jarvis here. I'll take Hertl first. I'll just grab one more Vegas piece to build out, like I said, a potential Western Conference final. How much Buffalo have I taken after tonight? So I might just go all the way in. We'll just take them all. Also, what does my screen look? This is what my screen looks like. I don't like that at all. This is what I want. Has no one mentioned that? Does it look better now? I can't see both. Let me move this. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay. I don't even know what it looked like before, to be honest. Yeah, no one said anything. Interesting. Okay, well, let me just check the NHL scores. Well, that's bad. Did Bedard score yet for me? No. Who scored for the Flyers? Tippett. Okay, that's helpful. Well, whatever. Parlay's not going to get there, but we'll live. Better, yeah. Okay, yeah. I don't know why no one. Yeah, please mention anything. I'm very much not paying attention right now to the. I can't do both. My problem is when I put this down here. All right, I can do that. But then every time I want to look down, I look like I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I look weird. But there's 73 people in here. I'm not sure who retweeted this because this is way more people than I expected. So, all right, I'll just do this and I'll just keep looking up. This draft has gone way too smooth. I don't know if I've ever had a draft go this smooth. This team is like my favorite team I've drafted so far. And again, it's just I'm fine with. There's no reason that there's no steadfast rule on. I need to have 4 teams. I need 2 in the West and 2 in the East. I need to. I think that you could win this whole thing with just a conference final. I really think that has the potential to happen because a team could sweep in the finals. I mean, it almost happened last year, and Florida still, I think, would have pitched in just because no one had Vegas goalie. Really, I don't think. No, I showed you, no one had the Vegas goalie, so it was a weird year, and it almost still worked out. If it's not as weird of a year where the goalie, think about how many cups are won on the back of a goalie going on a god run. The fact that we've had back-to-back years where the winning cup goalie didn't start, I mean, that's absurd. I think that's one of the biggest outliers in the whole thing. So I'm not sure if I'm actually committed to. I'm confident that you are better off taking 2 goalies. I do think that to advance throughout each round, you're much more likely with 2 goalie, or not much more, but I think there's a higher percentage. Like the threading the needle of 1 goalie makes me a little bit nervous. Is probably the best way to put it. So, man, I mean, this is going to be a really interesting last pick here. Nate Joss is going to go. Actually, it makes it a lot less interesting. Oh no, Kane goes. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. I have 1 Colorado center. I have 2 wings. 1. So I mean, I've built a Colorado team minus 1 player with a bunch of Carolina. I have nothing else. I mean, I am basically full on committed to threading a Carolina Colorado team. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind at this point. Adding anything else, I think, is foolish, but not. I think I want to give myself an out at center with a 4th. And again, it's 1-1-1-1, 2 flex. I'm really not that worried about it. Let me remove that comment, by the way. I think I'm going to go with Korshakov. Again, not going. I really think I'd rather buy on this guy now as he starts to really take over the net. And I know Anderson's back, but I am way too hesitant on that injury to take him myself. I could look stupid for this, but I do think if Korchakov is the clear number 1 starter and we get that down the line, he's going to fly up draft boards, and it's going to be real rare you're getting a guy on a team in Carolina who is now feeling like more of a front runner to win the cup. So yeah, I'm definitely in on that. I think that's this team worked out really, really well. It's 3 teams. That's fine. I think, I would say max 4. And if you have an extra guy in there, it's okay. Like if you take McDavid number 1, it gets back around to you and you just are absolutely toast on building that Edmonton team because people are jumping up the draft boards, grabbing Hyman, grabbing, Skinner. For some reason, you've just fallen into an Edmonton lobby. There's no issue at all, I think, with moving over. So yeah, I'm just checking. The next draft has 3 slots open. Jump in. I'm going to do another one. See if maybe this one was too easy. I mean, again, I'm not sure if you're watching this and you have never seen one of these. I feel like especially in football, if you've come from another sport, you're just constantly throwing your phone at the wall because someone sniped you on Brock Purdy. And every guy just kind of kept falling into my lap. And I give myself, again, I mean, let me just kind of go through my team now. I grab a top scoring center from Vegas in Jack Eichel. And I know they're not guaranteed to make the playoffs, but I think we all agree Vegas probably make the playoffs. I load that up with no one else on Vegas other than Thomas Hurdle. 1, 2, 3. All right, it should be this one. Yeah. Join the next draft, by the way. I'm in there on my phone. I'll jump over. Let's just pull this up. Let's give this a look. Still no questions, though. The only question is how much Buffalo have I taken? And obviously the answer is 0. Let's not be foolish. No one has a single question. It's just, this is so good that every single person in here is just like, why? How could I have a question? These are the perfect drafts by the perfect guy that's obviously going to win this. And I have no questions as to why he took Tomas Hurdle like an absolute. That was honestly, that's the one pick that I keep thinking about. Like, was that actually going to help me win this? Because what are we playing for? Are we playing for first place? Are we playing for advancing round 1? You know what I mean? And I mean, advancing round 1 is the only way to get there. So that was part of it with like, I need more potential points at center. And if Jack Eichel is going to carry me through round 1 at center, I kind of think he has to kind of carry me through round 2. I gave myself a bit of upside. Yeah. So yeah, no, that lobby, you were in that lobby, I'm pretty sure, right? I mean, that lobby did make it easy on me. That's what I'm saying. I don't really understand why that lobby just took it. So, I mean, like, someone was auto drafting. I mean, you have 1 of 6 auto drafting. That's gonna help quite a bit. Pretty rare. I've only been in, I think that was my second time with anyone on auto drafting. Pretty rare. So yeah, that definitely helps a lot. You can't look at the draft board. Okay, draft boards are broken, so we'll just look at this. That's okay. Who cares about anyone else? We're here for me. Yeah, so the 2 Vegas centers, I'm wondering about that. I've completely hitched my wagon to one potential cup outcome. You know, if you went into your phone right now and I don't know. I mean, I think FanDuel might offer it. Let's just take a look while I talk about this. Let's just say, what are the odds it is Colorado and Carolina, right? How much money would I have to put to make $10,000, right? I feel like it's not $10. And what I built here, in my opinion, is the absolute best case scenario for that Stanley Cup final matchup, which is why this is so fun and why I like doing it so much, because I took $10 and I built what I believe to be a 10K bet on 2 teams. Not every time can you do that as easily as I'm saying. I continue to tell you, but that's what I did here. You know, I said, this is my $10 bet. And Carolina's 8-1, Colorado's 7.5-1. It was worse than I even thought. Exact Stanley Cup matchup. Carolina, Colorado is 20-1. If I put what? So I'd put like, Jesus Christ. I mean, I have to put 50 times 10. So 5,000? No, I can't even. So max 2, I'm not going to do math. I could max 200 to make 4,000. Can't even get there. And again, that's what the bet is. It's just better than the sports books are offering. I mean, you can't do it for every team. You can't draft Colorado and Florida. You just can't. That's one team that if you really think that's going to be it, you think the stone cold chalkiest of chalk is going to get there, go to the sports books, I guess. But most matchups, you can kind of figure out. Not too hard. The next draft is still not full. So either there's 80 people in here that just want to hear me continue to talk. I'll go through my teams while I wait because I assume people are just going to join the next lobby, but I guess we're just 80 people now. Well, did someone retweet this? That's important. Like, I don't understand how it says there's 80 people just on YouTube. No, I don't. I mean, everyone that retweeted it is important. I'm not arguing that, but Matt isn't important. So really, just B McKee, Best Ball Bob, that's important. So I don't understand. But thanks everyone for joining. If I haven't said it yet, join the next lobby. What are we doing? You're 80 people in here. Someone join the next freaking lobby. We're just going to hear me talk about these teams. My first team, I went off the reservation and drafted Tampa to go with a Colorado team, somewhat similarly. Actually, I did get that core 3 with a Rangers Tampa, and I still had Jack Eichel. Kind of funny how that worked out. And then just ended up going all the way in on the Eastern Conference final because Vegas got nipped up pretty fast. Like people were just jumping on themselves to take everyone after I took Eichel. So I just said, screw it. And I built up basically a 1 Vegas, 3 Colorado, and then the Eastern Conference final, and just grabbed the both goalies for it. Vasilevsky, last picks with Stamkos. They're free right now. And I get it that Tampa's bad. at least in the standings. But in reality, we know what this team can be in the playoffs. We know what they've built. And really, more than anything, I just feel like it's just if they get there, there are four guys. I didn't get Victor Hedman here, but I took Kale McCarr, so I said whatever. It's four guys deep. So I don't mind going Tampa. I didn't do a ton of it. Team number two, I went with the Winnipeg. I mean, again, their team is free. I got the top guys. I know Ehlers is on the top power play, so I kind of thought back when I looked at this again. But Dallas got completely grabbed. All the Western Conference, I felt like I missed out on. So I built a pretty super Toronto team with all the guys and then just drafted Winnipeg. And basically, I thought if I'm taking Winnipeg first off, I'm always grabbing Hellebuck. There is no way this team progresses to even the conference final without him. So basically, I said, okay, I have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 for Toronto. I'm missing Marner. Okay. But if Toronto does make it to the Cup final, which if Eagles, if you're in here, one in the bazillion, I know. I have a number of outlets on the Western side to get me there, primarily centered around Winnipeg. Now, Winnipeg could face Dallas in the first round. I did kind of draw that up. I think it's a bit unlikely, more than likely the second round. So there's Robertson here. And Nashville could end up mixing into their grouping. We don't know yet. But any way you look at it, I felt like I gave myself a path with Toronto, and I focused on Winnipeg to do it. I think that when you have a team like Toronto, these scorers, if they get there, are probably going to be absolute must-haves in every round. Like Austin Matthews carries this team to a Cup final. First off, parades in the streets for this guy. He's going to be just must-have, like 100% of the finals. You know what I mean? This guy scores like 70 goals. I think it's just kind of wise to say that that's the team at that point. I drafted no other player in the Eastern Conference for that reason, which is something I'm doing with a team like Toronto. This ended up being a bit of a Boston team with Vegas and Colorado again. I feel like I keep getting into situations where I find myself grabbing a couple of Colorado guys and then realizing it's a completely lost cause. Went William Karlsson here, but I didn't know about Hurdle at that time. I do think Hurdle has more upside than William Karlsson, to be honest, and Karlsson's played great. But again, Eichel, Karlsson, Marchessault, Theodore, Aiden Hill against Boston, who again, no one's really drafting. Like 43 on the starting goalie, likely in Boston. I do think part of it is the goalie split. People are afraid. I went with Swayman here. I do think he's the number one. They almost traded Olmark. I think there's a reason behind it. And just flat out, Charlie Coyle's been good. He's my last pick here. My last two picks were center. But I have no problem with going with him over really anyone else that's center for Boston. To go with Pastrnak, Marchand, Coyle, McAvoy, everyone's counting the Bruins out. I get, obviously Pasternak's still a top 10 pick, but well deserving of it. Just the guy that's going to carry them. This is still the Bruins team that, again, going back to the standings, is number, are they or two, I think, in the East, or let me just pull it up. Yeah, 2 in the East by 1 point. Florida has 2 games in hand. Florida's really gone on quite a run here. But again, they're like third in the league in points. Pretty crazy. They're basically free. Still, I don't believe full. I think we need 2 more. Frozen, Bueller, 2 more. I don't know. This is another one. Super Toronto missed out on just Nylander this time for the top 3. And I know that Bertuzzi could be in the mix now with Tavares not getting the power play run, but I think you get to the playoffs and Tavares will be back to his normal spot. Very similar to the last one, but much more of I kind of pitched my wagon a bit more to Colorado, thinking that I could grab a guy like Middlestad, and I wanted Lehkonen later just to build around it, but it didn't really work out. I don't think this team ended up offering as much upside as I would have liked, which is why I grabbed Kucherov so late, just to say, you know what, I got a ton of upside in Matthews, Rantanen, Marner, Connor, Kucherov. This team does feel like a team that I kind of feel like I missed on enough to where I didn't mind going for all the upside in the world, knowing that there is a potential first round matchup with Winnipeg and Colorado. I hope to avoid it and move on to the second round with a ton of peak performers. And then Toronto, Colorado Cup final, sort of the end game here. I think it's enough still. Like I'm kind of leading to that. It's not a dead team, but I didn't feel like I got enough on defense really at all without Hedman and Kucherov. And outside of Matthews, center's a bit weak, as I mentioned. So yeah, I wonder about this one, but again, you look at that wing core and you just see 4 guys that are top 2 round picks in a full season best book tournament, along with a number 2, 3 overall guy in Austin Matthews. So I do think that team has all the upside in the world to move forward and dominate in the initial play. So if the right teams fall in the right spots, who's to say what could happen there? This team, I think, was actually ended up being one that I liked the least, just because the defense really didn't work out. Same goaltenders. I went Gorchakov and Georgiev. That's kind of just what's falling into my lap right now, more than anything, is this Carolina. Carolina's so easy to build around. I love this start, getting Granton in as late as I did. So I just kind of went with it. Like, I just kind of forced my hand at that point with I'm taking Colorado and I'm taking Florida, because I didn't think this was going to happen very often. Like I said, that's one of the matchups you're really not going to find too many scenarios you can build around easily. So when it falls to you, you just take it. And I lost out on people fighting with me a bit, and ended up saying, well, I got 3 Florida. I got, 3 guys on Colorado. I'm saying that that's my build, but I might as well give myself one last out. Again, this is what happened with the winner 2 years ago, where it seemed like they were kind of building one way. No, it wasn't the winner 2 years ago. Well, I know I went over like 12 teams. I gave myself a second out, where if Florida's absolutely must have and they lose in game 7 to Carolina, I give myself that out. And if they win, I'm okay. I mean, as long as it's Colorado, of course, I gave myself no out on them. It has to be them in this scenario. So yeah. And then obviously this team I already went over. And I cannot understand how there's 86 people and joining, unless if this number is a lie and no one wants to join the draft. Still waiting on 2. Weird. I never expected to go through every single team, but here we are. Well, I'll wait for a second. I'll check. Kaprizov hits my bet. That's good news. I love to see that. Did Bedard score yet? Kurashev from Bedard. Okay. Almost. We're halfway there. Oh, actually, I need to check my DFS lineup really quick. So I'll wait for the last 2 people to join, hopefully. Questions? Let me just make sure Aiden Hill's starting. It is Aiden Hill, it looks like. Okay, good. Yep, Aiden Hill in net. I think that team's probably dead, but yep, okay. Everything else is good. So no questions. We're almost to an hour. I was hoping to maybe go a bit over an hour. I didn't really care that much about time, but I wanted to do at least 2 drafts. So, I mean, if people are really just here for the lulz, I could talk about something else, I guess. Let me think of other things that I wanted to discuss. I mean, I was going to kind of touch on how many previous years had absolutely absurd Stanley Cup finals. And some of them were COVID related, where Montreal played Tampa in the Cup finals, which doesn't make any sense because that's only could have happened in that scenario. But Montreal was like not even a playoff team. They were added additionally to the mix because of the season ending as it did, and it being sort of unfair to teams that had a point percentage that could have made the playoffs. But again, even more to the point of a team that legitimately should not have made the playoffs made it to the Cup final in a crazy vacuum of that year. But whatever, right? I mean, it still could happen. And last year was Florida. Who would have thought? And maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. But let's think back to the team that Boston beat for the number 1 record of all time. It was Tampa Bay. Not that long ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And Tampa Bay went into the first round and got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. You just never know what's going to happen in the playoffs. So that's why I think the number 1 thing when I'm entering every single draft is, no matter what, I am saying be quick to adjust. Be quick to move on to something else. Seth Jones from Connor Bedard. Stop passing. Okay. The point, again, who cares about this bet right now? I know. Unless if you bet it with me. Bedard to assist. Of course. He's going to score. I'm not worried. He's just warming up, building up energy. Seth Jones hits his bet. We needed him to shoot that puck, to hit the other bet that everyone tells me on in here and cares about. Be quick to adjust. Be quick to get on to a new team. Another example of last year, one that I talked about on Pete's stream, and I got people that were like, I could see him, but again, his streams get more than 86 people. They're like, you really think Seattle could beat Colorado? And I'm like, that's what our model says. I'm not saying they should. Our model's saying that they're more likely to win than the odds are insinuating. And thus, it's actually much closer than you'd think. And while I will openly admit that Colorado was the better team doesn't always win because Seattle played with them and found a way to luck into a couple extra things that got him there, right? So every single person that was jumping all over themselves, just falling left and right to grab third line power play 2 guys was so far dead after round 1 that it just wasn't even funny. So number 1, if you're drafting, one team, draft whoever you want, right? I mean, just have fun. Like I said, you could just place a bet at way longer odds for Winnipeg to play Carolina in the finals, right? Why not? It's $10,000 at first, and you're going to be one of not too many people that have that type of build. But if you're drafted 100, 150 teams like me, do not hitch your wagon to like 3 teams and just say, well, I can maybe advance enough and blah, blah, blah. No, just spread the wealth out a bit. Be quick to adjust. Keep in mind, of course, as you saw through my teams, I have a lot of Colorado because I'm starting that way because they are in the first round. And if I get, McKinnon or Rantanen or Makar, and I can kind of build a couple guys on Colorado, I'm fine with doing that, especially as things will be adjusting later on. And we're going to just be in different windows of drafting than we are now. Any other sport you possibly draft for the playoffs, you'll know this is very much the same. As the playoff picture takes full form, now we're really looking at a whole new window of how we're going to be looking at things. But again, if I get into a draft and I start with Matthews and I get Rantanen, for example, and the guy that took McKinnon or Makar or someone takes Georgiev and they start running away and grabbing, Middlestad, Lehkonen, I'm not chasing them for Ross Colton. They want to take Ross Colton. That's all you. I'm just going to look at the other side, say, can I get, let me, again, I don't want to and I want to try to say teams that are actually make any amount of sense. I mean, really perfect example actually is just, let's take Vancouver, the number 1 team in the league right now, as far as points are concerned. Number two, maybe when you're listening to this, number 1, who's to say, but no one's taking Vancouver, right? I started with some Colorado. They're on the other side of the bracket. They could easily fill in and be the team that, plays a team like Vancouver or LA. I mean, especially in this scenario that I've built where I started with, again, like a Matthews and then went to Rantanen, I've missed Edmonton. If Edmonton's who you needed, I missed them. It's over for me. If Edmonton wins the cup, this team is dead. And I didn't have a way to build against that. McDavid's gone in this scenario. I drafted Matthews over Draisaitl. Draisaitl's gone in this scenario. You have to now build in that assumption. Florida's dead to me. Most likely. I'd say most likely. Almost definitely. Edmonton's dead to me. And now Colorado's gone. Who am I going to build around? Well, if you want to add to the bet that you're making already, I think LA or Vancouver make the most sense. Because you're basically saying Edmonton doesn't advance out of round 2. I mean, that's just how you do it. Now, we did have a question. Have I been taking stances on Detroit? No, not any of the Detroit Islanders or Washington yet. There's no need. They're still going to be relatively free down the line, in my opinion. Again, the only one has been Tampa. That's the only one. I don't really see a very big scenario of Tampa missing. They're only 2 additional points up on a team like Detroit, but now they're going to have a game in hand that puts them, only really, no, they're going to be tied now, I think, in games, but 2 points up. I don't know, man. I don't see Tampa missing at the end of the day. And Kucherov is just so lethal. Again, I think about it from, if Tampa's definitely in, people are going to draft them. And even if it's just under the assumption and the mindset of, we know how good Tampa is in the playoffs. You know what I mean? I mean, they always figure it out. And except for last year. Last year's the first year they didn't advance out of the first round, right? So the reason for that, though, is because Kucherov is a top 5 player in the world. He really is a heart candidate, even though people don't want to give him that credit. So I think Tampa just has that unbelievable peak upside with such a condensation of players that I want to make that bet now. If they're there, Detroit, kinda, but they're not even putting Larkin and DeBrincat and Kane on the same power play. So what's that correlation actually going to mean in this tournament? It's a little thin. The Islanders are the next one. I think it's closer with them. Yeah, right. I mean, hold on, let me just. This sentiment's going to be shared. I think Tampa could turn it on in the playoffs. Absolutely, people are absolutely going to fall into that. How are we still waiting for one person? Aaron, join. Someone freaking join. How is there one more person? I'm going to call Matt and be like, Matt, I'm going to kill you in like 2 seconds. Please join. I'm going to text him. Someone's got to join this. This is getting out of hand. Okay. My friend wanted to go to the Sabres game tonight, and I said I was streaming. Let me just send him a picture. I am streaming. It's OnlyFans. I told everyone I was going to be there. Okay. My headphones are being weird. Oh, yeah, we're loaded. We're loaded. Thank God. I was going to lose my mind. Okay, Aaron, you're my favorite. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to pretend that was a super chat, even though I don't think I'm allowed to because I don't have enough people. Oh, first pick. It's my first time getting the number one in my 7th draft. So, I mean, honestly, I'm going to take McDavid here. I'll get to that. I'm not going to, I guess, spill too many of the beans yet because it'll give away some of my stuff. This is my first number one. I haven't even had number 2. I've had a lot. LOL. But I've had a ton of 3, obviously, and a lot of 6 because I have a ton of Rantanen and Makar. I might end up leaning into a little bit of Draisaitl. I find Draisaitl so contingent on McDavid's success that it's just hard for me to see it where you take Draisaitl as a top 6 pick without McDavid, of course, obviously, and you're gonna win this whole tournament, right? I mean, okay, maybe McDavid gets hurt. I'm gonna go McDavid here. I think he's gonna jump him later on. We'll see. I will not fault you. I will not fault you for taking McKinnon. I mean, look at the numbers on this guy. We're not even done yet. We're not even done yet. I think it is pretty obvious. It's 1 and 2 in my opinion. I think if Toronto was a little bit better, maybe people like Matthews has been that level good. I do think so. To be considered as a top 2 still. 3, I think. Okay. Whoa. Igor Shesterkin 3rd. Interesting tactic. I will tell you, it's not what I would have done. I will say, if you were thinking Rangers when you started this, you might want to change your mind because this guy might just be going all the way in. Wow. Okay. And then there goes Matthews. So, yeah, that is. Let me just respond. Let's see where we're at. Okay. Rantanen and Makar. Yeah, I mean, I do think that's the turn right now. I really do. It's not inarguable. I think you could do other things, but again, I think the Rantanen and Makar is right now just kind of where the board lies. You're getting an absolutely elite pairing, and I get it. You're not going to get, there just isn't going to be a Rantanen McKinnon team in this tournament, it seems like. So Draisaitl goes. I do get this. I think this is pretty fun, actually. There goes Reinhart. Braden Point. Who in the world is Nikki? Nikki, who are you? Why? No one's making you do this. So the McKinnon start. Will they go Georgiev? Will they go Pastrnak? Either way, I'm taking Hyman or Pastrnak. So they take Bobrovsky. I mean, I gotta do it. When are you gonna get Pastrnak McDavid again? I mean, okay. I will do that. I will start with Pastrnak, McDavid, and Hyman. Sure. I mean, I might not get Bouchard home, but okay. I guess again, how does the board fall into your lap, right? If I started with McKinnon, I would have gone with Pastrnak either way. I would have just built that way, and I would have probably forced Georgiev in there for sure. I would have given myself I still have a good fun team there. But man, am I absolutely running to the bank to start with Pastrnak McDavid. Holy crap. Yeah, Aaron, I kind of assumed this was you. Yeah, thanks again for not letting me just get Pastrnak and Draisaitl. That was actually very mean. I wanted McDavid, Draisaitl, and Pastrnak. So I'm actually mad at you now. No more super chat. Holy crap. So, yeah, I mean, this is going well tonight. This guy, all right, this draft's going to get thrown out, I feel like. Nikki, stop it. What are you building? Who let you get away with this? I'm a little bit nervous. Let's see what he builds. Okay, you did take Bouchard. That makes sense. I can't really fault you there. You're running into a tricky spot though, because you have some absolute wild cards in this lobby. It takes Nylander. So yeah, I mean, again, Aaron's in here. He knows what I'm doing. I know what he's doing. Stay COVID. Yeah, this is. I don't even like. This is obviously you're doing this on purpose, but like, no one's making. Like, this person's actively taking these players. Like, I don't know. I don't know if this gets thrown out against. I can't do anything about it. Obviously, I certainly. It's the last thing I want when I get this kind of start. But so yeah, I'm up again. I don't think this is going to come as much of a surprise. I'm going to grab Stu Skinner here. Sorry to Aaron, but you can't pass up this opportunity when it gets handed to you. You're taking Stu Skinner and you're building this Edmonton team. I know I missed out on two pretty big pieces, but I have the most important one of all. So no doubter there. I could continue onward. I don't need to take anything on Boston yet. There's just no need. I mean, what's the other side of things? I don't really need a center, but does it matter that much? I could grab Aho. I could grab Svechnikov. I mean, I might just take Sebastian Aho and just build a bit of Carolina on the other side. They're on the other side of Boston. I'm already hitching my wagon so heavily to Edmonton. Yeah, so I guess this guy's been around, but I don't know. Yeah, this seems pretty wild. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens here. I'm kind of, it's hard not to show your cards in these drafts because you're not taking 17 different teams. You're taking, like I said, I would never go over the maximum of 4. I did show you a 4, I believe 5 actually, with a very weird Toronto build. And I don't really like that. I think what I did can make sense with like Edmonton or a Toronto, where you get that absolute must-have pieces of, like if you started McDavid, Hyman, Bouchard, Stewart, for example, and you just take a bunch of guys on the Eastern Conference just because things aren't really falling into your lap and you wasted all of your equity early on. You're trying to find your path. You don't get there. You end up on 5 teams. Again, those on either side of the coin with Toronto and Edmonton are probably the two. And in this draft, we see someone building kind of a nice Toronto Edmonton team. Vancouver is on their side of the bracket, but again, I mean, it's not like it's wrong to do, but I would keep that in mind a little bit that Vancouver, Edmonton likely don't escape together in the second round. So yeah, I'm going to Carolina. I'm just kind of building Carolina, Boston. I'm gonna probably avoid the rest. They're not hard to get, and fill in some Edmonton around it where I can find it. I definitely know another piece I might grab. And you might notice that teams are getting highlighted. That's because of the Brick Draft Caddy, which is brick75.com if you want to look into this. If you're here, you've probably seen Pete Overzet stuff. He uses it too, but it will point out the players that come from center automatically because it thinks center's quarterback. So it's like, oh, you got the quarterback. Now all the players around them you probably want tight end and receiver and running back. So that's why it thinks that way. But if you didn't take a center, I think it doesn't know. Like, I don't think it's showing. Yeah, it's not showing Boston, for example. But I mean, yeah, things continue to fall. The rich get richer. I'm going to be really hurting on defense, but I can figure it out. I'm going to take Svechnikov and Jake Gensel. Why not? I mean, they're right here for me. I take my 3-man Carolina. Okay. I know I'm going to just mark McAvoy for now, and he'll probably be my first D-man in. Not the best in the world, but a full rates player. He hits, shots, blocks, points come along with it. Very instrumental on the power play. If Boston is what you needed and Pasternak is what you needed, I definitely think you could be involved. I'm going to take one more winger. I don't mind having 2 centers here with McDavid. I've hitched my wagon very heavily to McDavid. I mean, he is the best player in the world, bar none. There's no argument. McKinnon is not going to be the guy you needed. It's McDavid in this scenario. So he's got to stay healthy. He's got to score every round for me pretty high to continue to advance. So I'm saying it's a McDavid team. If I walk into another center and there's, I think, one guy maybe I'm considering, but I'm really going to be looking at loading up on defense. Oh yeah, there's one guy, Nugent Hopkins, that I could consider. And the only other Edmonton drafter already has 3 centers, so he might end up slipping, but we'll keep an eye on him. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you can kind of do it. Yeah, you can still just build Vancouver and just, yeah, I mean, whatever. As we noticed in a lot of those teams, there's a lot of teams in the finals that had guys that have been dead for a while and really didn't make that much of a difference. So yeah, that this draft's also going very well. I am happy. I guess these two are going to be the ones on stream. They're going to make me look pretty smart if either of them win. But I'm taking 2 hacks at 2 finals that I think are very logical. You son of a gun, you build this absolute dog water lineup, and then you take Charlie McAvoy. Who are you, Calvin? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm worried this gets thrown out, but I'll have proof that I was here for it and that I did draft it at one time. I guess I really don't know. Okay, well, I am obviously going to take Brent Burns here. I guess I'll take Marchand, and I'm just going to have to load up a bit on defense to fill out and worry about. I mean, obviously we have to take Burns. This is tough. I don't love the idea of Darnell Nurse at all. I think he's actively very bad. I'm probably not going to take Darnell Nurse no matter what. I think it's just probably a last pick on Ekholm or something. Yeah, this I mean, that's going to be my Achilles heel. I'm probably going to grab. Yeah. Oh, yep. This is a really good call. Sup. But I read it as sub because I'm looking way down. But not much. Just drafting absolute shippers right now. I really think, other than defense being weak, and I showed you guys though how many teams were in the finals that made $6,500 without a position. Like, even if I have a defensive guy that scores 12, 15 points on shots, blocks, and garbage, a couple of assists, it could still be helpful in the fight. I mean, yeah. So what's up is I'm winning this entire thing tonight. I'm done drafting. Like, I already won. And also sub if you're watching on YouTube, if you haven't already. I'll check the numbers when I'm done. I was hoping to get over the 200 mark. It's not that big of a, accomplishment, but I'm still building this channel and trying to add more content and just try to get to a point where I feel like we can do as much as we want on here. So yeah, I don't know. Just subscribe now. The road to 1,000 is on, whatever the cliche things are to say, et cetera, et cetera. What an amazingly weird draft. I'm gonna see, this guy's probably not taking Nugent Hopkins. I guess I just grab him. I just build a little bit more onto Edmonton. I think I just have to. He's been bad this year, but last year at 100 points. Who's to say he doesn't turn it on in the playoffs? Sure, right? There's a ton of options at wing I can still go with. I have one. Yeah, I got to take 2 more defensemen though after this. I'm just going to take Nuge. I'm going to regret it. I think I'm going 1 goalie here. I have to. I have to take D. I have to. And man, there is just nothing left. Where are you? Holy crap. I'm going to take Matthias Ekholm now. I know it's stupid. I could definitely take him with the last pick, but I'm just going to, whatever falls to me at this point, I have to make sure I at least have 2 defensemen, and he's the guy, I guess, that I'm taking from Edmonton. He's going to play a ton of minutes. He's probably going to be power play 2 with Darnell Nurse, and I just think he's better, to be frank. They're scoring about the same amount of points, but Nurse has been moved on to like the 3rd pairing at this point, more and more as the playoffs go on. I think you're going to see less and less Darnell Nurse. I mean, I feel bad, but he just isn't it. Boston, I mean, it's, if you're going to do it, you're probably taking Campus Lindholm. I'm just not going to go that far. I really think I messed up on defense. I may grab Roman Yossi. It's risky. Roman Yossi could play the first round against the Oilers. It's definitely risky. On the other hand, right now they are not projected to play the Oilers in not in the first round. I mean in the second round. There's almost no way the Oilers are catching Vancouver. So it would be a second round matchup at worst. I think I grab Roman Yossi and I just say this Nashville team's absolutely scorched earth hot. They're up 9 points. They're making the playoffs. No one's drafting them. If someone takes them from me, someone takes them from me. But I think I just grab Roman Yossi and complete this team. I mean, who am I really grabbing here? I mean, there's Nachos, there's Kane, but at the end of the day, I need the points on defense so bad. There goes Nachos anyways. It really would be down to Evander. I think I just have to take one of the most elite defensemen in the world, one guy in between me, and they take Forsberg, which is the other great player on Nashville. So I'm gonna grab Roman Yossi. Like I said, as of recording, they're 9 points up on the playoff spot. This gives me more opportunity. If they win a round and they play Edmonton in the second round, maybe Yossi goes crazy and keeps them in the series and keeps McDavid moving, and I move forward with a really nice solid team. So I'm only going one goalie there. I don't love that. I went over some reasons. I went over why it wasn't always ultra successful, but at the end of the day, I end up going with one goalie and Stuart Skinner. But I think when you're hitching your wagon to a McKinnon or McKinnon or McDavid, really, and you then hitch your wagon to their goalie, you've kind of put yourself in that scenario that you have to have it. And I am now officially an Ekholm slappy. I will agree with this. Just you have to be. Who like he's going to play like 28 minutes in the playoffs. I mean, he's their best defender, and he plays with Bouchard, who is their best offensive. I'm probably the best defenseman on the team, right? I mean, the best total package. So yes, I am now an official Ekholm slappy, and yeah, Kane is on the third line, and I don't see that getting much better. While Nugent Hopkins is playing primarily with McDavid, which is why I think that was a risk worth taking. I do think that Georgiev with McKinnon, McDavid with Stuart Skinner are probably the two scenarios where one goalie makes the most sense and gives you the most upside to win with one of them. That makes a lot of sense to me. 91 viewers. I almost feel bad like closing out, but I'm gonna with the most views I've ever had by a substantial margin. Yeah, thank you a bazillion for showing up, for watching this. I hope it was helpful. Definitely, I think a lot of this is pretty thought out. I do think we have a really good strategy going into this. And if you're following these guidelines, sure. And yeah, I mean, as Aaron just points out, I really actually got the whole first line right now in Edmonton, which is tough to do. Not impossible. Obviously, it's very doable, but that's the first line right now. Things could change, and obviously you prefer. And I have seen actually in one of my drafts someone get McDavid at like 2 or 3 because someone, I think took like they took the Chuck second and they took McDavid 3 and they ended up getting Draisaitl. It is doable, but yeah, I think I gave myself the most upside in an Edmonton vacuum. But again, every draft, I think throughout this, I gave myself a third rule that's absolutely paramount. Number one, again, change your mind as fast as possible. Do not get stuck in the mud on the team you started with. Start with the best guy. Start with an opportunity to, again, the best case scenario of I got McKinnon and I got Makar, right? Not going to happen often, but if it somehow happens, you are building an unbelievable Colorado team, right? Try to have that mindset, the most optimism. If it's not working out and you've missed out on everyone else, jump off that ship right now. You have McKinnon. He can advance. Don't go crazy drafting into his division. Maybe take another Colorado guy, but build that Eastern Conference final and then build a little bit on another side with a team in the Pacific, like a Vancouver. Be quick to jump. Number 2 is I'm trying to remember what I said before the video started. The roster construction not being all that important. But I mean really by roster construction being, again, the one center that scores, the one winger scores, the one defenseman score, and the one goalie score. The important part about that is that what you start with should now dictate how this roster is going to be constructed. I looked into a scenario where I got one of the top centers and one of the top wingers, which is incredibly rare to actually fall into. But if you start with McDavid, you don't need 5 centers now. Like McDavid has to carry you. I think you're probably maybe going a bit too far saying 2, unless if you can, completely load up something random, like, if you get McDavid Draisaitl might be the perfect example of where you just don't end up taking another center. Again, not even that you'd have to. 3 probably looking at more of a minimum, unless if the perfect storm happens, right? But again, let those first picks dictate what's going to happen next, and make sure you're then filling out the most active, successful roster build from there. And I think that's what I did here, right? 3 centers. You may argue defense is still too weak. I definitely would agree with you there, but Roman Josi as a last pick gives me a bit of a leg. I think I gave myself an absolute metric ton of upside with every position. Argue with goalie if you'd like in the comments. Well, hold on. Do you jump off the ship if your goalie gets taken? Yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, I think this isn't going to work, right? No, it's still not going to work, I'm sure. I mean, it's so dependent on the team because there's only so many teams whose goalies go early. So if, again, in this scenario I have here is a bad example, but if it was Rantanen that slipped instead of Pastrnak, which does make sense, Rantanen normally goes after Pastrnak. I miss both goalies on Edmonton and Colorado. I'm jumping off one of them. You know what I mean? Like I have to, just because I have to build out enough on the other side. So it's super. So I took Skinner. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think you're probably right to do it. But it's team specific. Like Edmonton's now gone. Like all of the players go, and then the only player left is Nugent Hopkins at that point. That's really all that valuable. Bouchard you took, and you didn't take Skinner. That was a choice you had to make there. And no matter what you took, I was taking the other one. I'm just, I will tell you that straight up. I mean, I was taking the other guy, and if I had to, I already started with Boston. I was just going to build an Eastern Conference final goaltending tandem of Korchekov and Swayman, which would have been very risky on both sides. And I didn't really want to do that. So I was hoping to get Skinner, to be honest. So I gave myself a bit of a cornerstone goalie because in reality, it could be Olmark, could be Freddie Anderson in this Eastern Conference build that I was already, I was tethered to Boston. So yeah, it is tough. But yeah, I think you have to build. Don't go off of last 2 years of saying, well, there were teams that placed top 5 without a goalie scoring. That's super rare. I don't think that's going to happen again. It's very unlikely. So yeah, I do think you're really, really to win a tournament going to have a goalie in your mix. So either you're jumping off that team or you're jumping in on a team that you can still build around a goalie with in the later rounds, which is very doable with a team like you picked in Vancouver. It's very doable with Hellebuck and stuff, which isn't good with Edmonton, but again, it's doable. So yeah, I think you do want to jump off. I think but it's definitely specific to the team of Edmonton in this scenario. And there's not too many teams other than Edmonton and Colorado where that feeling is really there for. Maybe Toronto, but I mean, when's that goalie going, right? Yeah. Oh, another one's gonna fill. I'm gonna get out of here though. You know what? Yeah, I gotta get out of here. I'm an hour and a half. I really gotta go do other things with my life. I might draft another team every single night at 9 p.m. I'm gonna start a draft, or at least tweet and remind people. If I don't jump in, I'll still try to get some people in there. I'm gonna mention it in Discord. I might make a little graphic for it. 9 p.m. Underdog Zamboni drafts. We'll do it every 9 p.m. Eastern, every night of every day. And then we'll do some special events and stream again for sure. Definitely going to do this again. Might do it weekly, might do it bi-weekly. Matt does want to jump in the next one, I'm pretty sure. I had a third rule and I just completely lost it. I probably covered it 17 times. So yeah, just don't be afraid. Don't be a coward. The last year, the cowards went home early, and the people that had the stones to draft Florida won thousands of dollars. Just think about the odds of a team like Florida doing that again, and look at them. You can pull it up on your favorite sportsbook app and think about how much money you win if you're right. And that doesn't mean do what that nut did and draft freaking Stankoven 3rd overall or whatever. Draft George or freaking Igor Shesterkin, but it does mean take a stab on a team. You lost out on Edmonton. Boo hoo. Go jump on I don't know, freaking Winnipeg. Or yeah, Winnipeg's in the Central. Perfect team. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. Have nuts. You don't even need to scroll the F down, but definitely do it when it comes up, like I did with Ekholm. That's okay. And we'll see you in more lobbies. Thanks for joining, everybody. And I'll do this next week. I didn't know it'd be this popular. So sweet. Subscribe, like the video, and we'll talk soon.